Hey, this is Mike Diercksen from Proactive, and you're listening to the Building Byte podcast. Tune in as we spotlight our guest, Terence Curran, Chief Operating Officer at the Amphibious Group. Our episode today is focused on safety captives, what they are, and how they work. For more information on this episode and others, please check out the Building Byte at www.buildwithproactive.com.
Welcome to the Building Byte podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals where you'll hear from the experts about key topics that will help you be successful. I'm Chris Epps, a Vice President at Proactive, and I'm joined here with my co-host Mike Diercksen, our Manager of Marketing and Business Development. Our guest today is an innovator in the construction safety space, Terence Curran. Terence is the Chief Operating Officer with the Amphibious Group. Terence, how are you this afternoon?
Doing good, guys. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah, looking forward to diving in here. This is definitely an interesting topic and definitely a little different than, most of our core podcasts. So happy to jump in here. Mike, how about yourself? How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Chris. I'm really excited to talk with Terence, and it's true. It's such a unique topic, and when we heard it, we knew we had to reach out to him to get him on here. So really looking forward to this.
Yeah, definitely. The topic of safety captives. Even myself, I had to ask, just as a starting point, well, what is that? So happy to sort of get this out there into the marketplace and let some other people hear about it. So yeah, Terence, thanks again for joining us today on the show. Before we jump into that main topic, I was hoping you could maybe give our listeners a few insights about your background and kind of how you got to where you are before, starting your role in the Amphibious Group.
Well, guys, thank you so much for having me on here. You guys have a great, excellent podcast, and excited to talk a little bit more about our program and what we offer. And it's been a weird kind of journey for me. So again, Terence Curran, and I started out as a rescue diver, EMT, critical care technician, working on the ambulance, working with the fire department, volunteering in New York and Rockville Center. And I always just had the kind of feeling of wanting to give back to the community and working on the ambulance for a number of years, almost 10 years in New York City and out on Long Island. One of the things that we always ran into is we would treat the patients, take care of them, drop them off at the hospital. You never knew anything after the fact, like whatever happened to that individual that we had. We just felt great for helping somebody. And my journey was I was going to be an NYPD police officer. That was my goal. I was going that route. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into either the bomb squad or go out onto the boat and help rescue people on the Hudson. But ultimately, wasn't in my cards. Things just worked out for me in a different way. And I came across just putting my resume up on Craigslist, back when it actually was a place for you to put your resume up. And I got an email from this company called Amphibious Medics. And Jackie Griffin was the recruiter, and she said, "Hey, I see you're a rescue diver, I see you're a lifeguard and EMT, and we're looking for somebody to work a Tough Mudder race in Ohio. Can you get a team together?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I got a bunch of my buddies, and we drove in a car 12 hours to Ohio, ended up working the race. And I met Mike Donahue, the founder of the company at the time, and he said, "Hey, great. Would you want to go work up in Boston next week?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I ended up traveling the country on the weekends, just kind of getting things up and running on the Tough Mudder side and working my way up as a crew supervisor. And then went into the media production sets. And from there, we had construction. Construction was really small at that time. We only had about 3 or 4 projects up and running. And one of the things about the program was you really were just what we call ghost medics. Like you sat at a desk, you waited till somebody got hurt. And from there, that was it. You just treated them. Well, when I started on the construction side, I couldn't do that. I couldn't sit at a desk there. So being a firefighter in my background, I started working on hot work permits on the project, helping the safety manager, and really just kind of got free reign from Mike to just work with them and create a program. So we built a full elaborate program, which we then started calling ourselves health safety medical technicians. We really wanted to get in that proactive stance and reactive, get away from being that reactive stance to just helping somebody when they get hurt, actually preventing the injuries. And it grew. So from there, I worked my way up to be the chief operating officer for the company. And over probably about 8 years, we really just working with all the risk managers across the country. We developed such an elaborate program on the medical side that clients started reaching out to us and said, hey, can you come up with safety? And we started providing safety. So Savi EHS came about. And then we recognized really quickly that most of our executive team and leadership and admin team were working for both companies, but really only working for one company. So we created the Amphibious Group. And that's how we grew to be TAG today. And from there, it's just always been, how do we help further and develop our clients and find those little niches that they need, to try to figure out how do we support them to the next level. And that's where we are today. We're going to talk about Safety Captive and how that kind of developed and came to fruition.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome journey. And as someone who regrettably did one of those Tough Mudders, I'm sure you saw some gnarly injuries. They electrocute you at certain points. It was a whole thing, but that's a different podcast. But Terence, diving into our topic here, the topic today, like you said, safety captives, what they are and how they work. I know Chris and I were similarly like, what is that? Something we hadn't heard of before. And I think it's an exciting topic for our audience, right? And it's timely at that. We often hear about the labor shortages going on. It's a big issue. But, maybe what we're looking at is it's that instead of a lack of bodies, it's a lack of qualified bodies, right? People that can help you work with that. So can you walk us through your approach with the safety captive and how you're looking to handle and maybe alleviate some of those concerns?
Yeah, it's so interesting that sometimes it's the simplest solution that just pops into your head and you get that like wow moment. So I'm a member of the ABC Central Florida chapter. We're members of other ABC organizations throughout the country. And in sitting with some of the meetings and meeting with the contractors and just kind of roundtabling on what are they hearing, what's going on in the industry, and including ourselves for the safety side of staffing, a lot of the clients were coming back saying, we just can't find the right talent, or the people that are out there, it's saturated, but they're just bouncing from company to company. And we're looking for stability. How do we get somebody to be here that's going to work with us? And a part of it also was listening to a lot of the bigger general contractors coming back and saying, man, I love X company. They're such good people, but they are so unsafe. They just lack the knowledge of what's going on there. And they have a safety person. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't make sense to me. How does it? They have a dedicated safety person that they have there that they're calling their safety director, but they lack the knowledge of what's going on. And just kind of taking that and peeling back the onions and finding out that a majority of the contractors and subcontractors we work with is they don't have a lack of knowledge. They have a lack of knowledge of other companies that are working around them in that industry. So they'll be at that project and they know everything about being a plumber. They know everything about doing sandpipes. They know everything about being a woodworker. But the problem is when they turn around and have to start thinking, okay, I'm working in this room and I got painters, I got lathers, I got other people that are coming in here. How do I have to be safe or make sure that they can perform their tasks while mine? So it's not really a lack of knowledge. It's just a lack of the general overall, how do you work together? So that's when we came back and said, hey, what if we created a safety captive? And everybody looked at me and was like, what is a captive, a safety captive? I know of insurance captives. Like, how does that work? And I was like, well, just think about it. We could literally mimic that model. You have insurance companies, they did it the right way. They came back and said, hey, you guys cannot be insured out there, but if we put you together, squeaky wheel gets the grease. You now have insurance. Let's all work together, pool the money, and create a great program. And if you adhere to it, then you'll be able to stick to the captive program. Well, we came back and said, why can't we do that for safety? What if I brought in a true, credentialed, educated safety director and put him in front of you? And everybody said, well, that's great, but I can't afford a $250,000 guy. I can't afford somebody that's going to walk in here and I'm going to train them up over 6 months and then they're going to leave because the next company is going to call and say, hey, I'm going to give you 270. I'm going to give you 280. And I said, well, that makes sense. But if you guys pool your money together and now you pay a small fee for me, I have the guy. My team member will be your safety director. We'll help you, but we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to add in a little bit more of a solution, a full round solution for you that where everything comes together on having medical and safety. So you got your preventative and you're reactive. But it all really comes down to leadership on that point too, is how do you implement change and drop things onto your entire company and ensure that it's actually going to be rolled out. So you have to come out with a really good, elaborate rollout plan over a year-long process. It's not a 2-day process where we walk in and say, hey, let's look at your EHS manual. Here's all the things that need to be corrected. Go. Which you typically get on the consulting side. They come in, they tell you, hey, here's what's wrong. Go ahead and fix it and implement it and roll it out. But I see a lot of leadership don't have that understanding of like, hey, we're going to roll this out over 90 days. I just need to drop more and more and more onto my team because we need to build the revenue that's coming in from the projects. But how do you get that next project? Instead of going after onesie twosies, because you think, well, if I have 30 projects, I'm going to make the most amount of money. It really comes down to, if you have 4 mega projects, would you gain more money out of that process? So that's what really is how the captive program kind of came about.
It's definitely an interesting approach too, Terence, that you get one sort of that built-in benchmarking of a true health and safety professional who's seen the rest of the industry and seen the rest of the market. You also get sort of the scalability built in with the concept of the captive that allows, that to be an answer really for any size contractor, but particularly for maybe, smaller and mid-sized guys who are kind of looking to make that leap. So I can see how you're certainly filling a sort of a void in the market there. We usually find, our audience connects when there's a case study or kind of an example. Is there something you could share with us where, a contractor was able to make that leap, or where they were presented new opportunities or successes as a result of using your captive?
Yes. So there was a contractor that we did bring on to the safety captive program that initially, and I know the gentleman for a long time, and he and I talked, and he said, I'm focusing so much more on basically what we call the breadcrumbs. He goes, I'm focusing on all the smaller projects because that's where I can quick hits. I'm winning those jobs. I'm getting those. He goes, I can't make it to the next level, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. And I said, well, what's really stopping you from getting to that level? And why are you not bidding on some of these bigger jobs? And he's like, well, the programs that they're requiring are too elaborate, and I don't have that. And I can't afford to spend $20,000 on a contractor or a company like yours to come in and rewrite an entire manual for me. And then I don't have the bandwidth to take my guys and make sure that they're actually following through on this. I said, well, it sounds like you need to hit the captive program. He's like, yeah, but I just can't figure out how much. Like, I can't afford that. And I said, well, let's look at some of the programs that you're offering right now. And we sat down and we ended up finding out that they were part of a program where if a person got a star at the end of the week, it was able to spell out safety by the end of the year. If they did that, they were able to get a token that potentially won them back about $1 million potentially within a draw. That was all over the country. I said, well, that's great. But if you're spending that much money on that program and it has the potential to do this, wouldn't you rather take that away, bring it to your team members here, and now show them that you're able to operate safely and that you're actually implementing something for them? And he's like, well, let's take a look at it. So we did. And it was great because at the end of it, we were able to rewrite their entire program. We were able to go out and start auditing some of their projects. We found some other issues that were within the program and other people that didn't have a full understanding of what some of the credentials they need to have on some of these projects. So we started working and training right away for them and implementing that. And then we went to some of the general contractors that we know and have relationships and said, hey, they have Savi EHS now on their team. We are their safety director. Here's our safety director, his background, his credentials, and this is what we're implementing. Give us an opportunity to work with them to bid on some of these jobs. And they said, yes, let's go. So we came in and we said, hey, let's start bidding on some of these. And he did win 2 of the big jobs. And he's back up and running on them. And now they're starting to see more. And he's getting into more bids. And now we're talking about how do we get to that next level? And we want to coach and nurture them to the point of, we hope one day you outgrow the size for the captive program. Mm-hmm. Like our idea is that a company should be affiliated with in the captive for about 2-3 years. And in a 3-year period, you should be outgrowing us to the point of you have to hire your own internal safety director at that point. And it's great because it's such a wide mix. We have contractors, a general contractor just reach out to us and said, hey, we have a safety team. We have a dedicated director. They're all brand new. Can you come in and all we want you to do is just be a mentor to them? So they're joining the captive program just for the mentorship side, on us coming in and helping guide them and follow and focus on what's going on, because it's a young age group that is coming in right now. Their statistics is about for every 3 baby boomers that retire, only 1 young person is being hired to come in here. So now imagine if you're losing 3 of your nurtured, well-seasoned, vetted employees and staff members, and now you're bringing in 1 replacement for 3. What do you think they're going to be looking at? Is they're looking at you as a senior leadership saying, hey, help me, guide me, train me. But now you just lost your field mentors. They're gone. They've already retired. So what's the next steps? Well, look into an option like ours. Look in to see what options are out there to help guide and mentor them to that next level.
Yeah. No, Terence, it's honestly, it makes so much sense just like talking it out and everything like that. And, I'm curious, you mentioned at the beginning, but what was the aha moment that really kind of got you there? I mean, it's such a good concept, and it's kind of amazing it hasn't been done successfully before this. But also, in addition to that aha moment, like, is there a sweet spot? You mentioned that you hope that the people that join the captive, they're there for 2-3 years, and hopefully that gets them to a place where they need to go out and get their own dedicated risk professional, because they've grown in size and sophistication. But is there a sweet spot for people really looking to join up with you?
Hey, Michael, so I say the sweet spot that we look for is between $5 to $25 million. So smaller size, mid-sized companies that they might be at perfect moment of I'm almost at that next level to where I need to hire my own person, but I'm not there yet. Or they're operating and they have a smaller safety team that where they're coming in saying, hey, I need you to help mentor and guide us along into the next steps and work with our team members to just develop them and foster into that group of true safety directors, safety professionals that are out there. So the $5 to $25 million seems to be the sweet spot for us for what we've seen. And like I said, and then we have general contractors that the one that we're working with is $100 million, and all they want us to do is mentor them. So the range is so wide, but the subcontractors between 5 to 25 million seems to be where we want to look at annually range to where coming onto the program. And then, our goal is that eventually you're going to outgrow us.
Right.
I think the aha moment for us was just when we sat down and looked at all the contractors and the subcontractors, and I pulled in my team. So I had Christian Dieter, who's our director for Sabi EHS, and Ian Foley, who's a VP of Operations and Business Development. And we sat down in a room and we were just whiteboarding everything and came back and we were trying to come up with different tiers and different programs. And it was just so wide, so massive. And we sat back and we looked at it, and all 3 of us at one time just turned around and went, wait a minute. We wiped the entire thing and we just went back and said, let's keep it basic. Let's just go back to the essentials. What do we need to do here? So creating a small tier program of just go back to the basics. Start with reviewing your manuals. What do we need to do here? Review the manual. How often are you supposed to review it? Once a year annually. What's crazy is how many times we go into clients and say, hey, when was the last time you reviewed it? And they go, oh, last year. And we go, okay, well, how long did it take? Well, it took 3 or 4 hours. Okay. How big is it? Oh, I don't know. And we just skimmed it. It's like you skimmed it in 3 or 4 hours. That's a massive manual. So why not do a survey? Let's shoot a survey out to all your employees. How many of them actually know where the EHS manual is, have readily accessible to them, and understand what's in there? And we usually have a running joke that we'll bet with clients when they're like, well, our manual's perfect. And we say, I'll bet you in 20 minutes I can find 6 things wrong. And we typically know where to go because a majority of clients get it from either the carrier, their broker, or they buy it off of online. How many of them have actually sat down and developed their own in-house EHS manual from scratch? I have not met one yet. So, and that's not, there's no issue with that. It's just when you look at it, most carriers say, okay, great, this is your company, and they load you with everything to ensure that you're covered with everything. But the problem is sometimes less is more. If you have so much information in there, you're risk, because now you're not even performing these tasks, but it says that if in the event you are, you have to do X. So you have a mentorship program. Okay. We had a client that had this in there, and we said, all right, where's your purple hard hats? And they're like, what? I'm like, in here, it says that you assign a purple hard hat to all of your employees on day one that are going to be with you for the first 90 days. And they're assigned a mentor. Who's the mentor? They're like, we don't do that at all. I'm like, okay, well, that's a problem. What happens if you have an employee get hurt in the first 90 days? Yeah, that's a problem. All right, so let's go ahead and review this. Oh, when did you review this? Last week. I'm like, okay. So you signed off on something you had no idea is even in this manual.
Right.
And there's no fault of their own. It's a busy time right now with the shortage of staffing, and everywhere it is, everybody's busy. So it's no fault of their own. I can't blame anybody for that. Everyone makes mistakes and misses stuff. It's just why not take the time to hire somebody to come in and just help you guide through that process? And we made it affordable. The captive program is affordable because it's broken up over a year-long payment period. It's not, hey, onesie, we're charging you for this. Oh, we found this. Okay, let's go ahead and do your manual now. Let's go ahead and do a rollout plan. Oh, we're charging you for that too. We don't want a nickel and dime. We want to make it affordable for these team members that want to get to that next level. And we hope in the event that when you do go off on your own and say, hey, I got to hire somebody, you call me and say, hey, Terence, I need to hire a true safety director. Find me a person. And I'll go ahead and staff them for you.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you touched on something, Terence. It's great to have sort of those lists of, call it best practices, but if you're not implementing them, then so what? Or if they're not scalable, there's no benefit to just having that in a book somewhere. So it certainly seems you guys are, with the implementation side, providing a lot of lift really to the contractors and subcontractors that need it most within the industry. And one of the things you had mentioned to us the last time we spoke when we were talking about the podcast was that you had recently partnered with the Central Florida Associated Builders and Contractors. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe expand on that story a little bit?
Yeah, it was interesting. We'd already been dabbling in the safety captive program and developing it and fostering it. And Michelle Doherty, who's the president for the ABC Central Florida chapter, she and I have a great relationship. Goes all the way back to California when she was managing out there for NorCal. And she calls me up and we're chatting about some other stuff. And a majority of the time when she calls, my team members all cringe. Because when she and I get on the phone, we really start deep diving into stuff and start getting into conversations. And we walk out of there, and I usually walk out saying, hey, so Michelle and I spoke, and we're going to do all of this. And then my team members look at me and go, we? And I go, yes, we, as in you guys. We're going to implement some programs, and we're going to come up with some new designs. And one of the things that she came back to me and we just happened to be talking about is the safety committee for ABC had not been up and running for a number of years. And she came to me and she's like, hey, Terence, I really want to get the safety committee program up and running. I want to bring value to our team members that are partners with us. Can you jump in with us on this? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And part of it, she's like, yeah, the board came back. They want us to hire a safety director. So that way people can call and say, hey, I have a problem. I have this. And I said, well, let's take that to the next level. I was like, I have an idea, and we're talking about a safety captive program here that we are dabbling in and kind of working with people, but I would love to partner with ABC on this and take it to a nationwide level. She's like, all right, let's do it. So that was our next, right after our ha-ha moments. So it was like, how do we take it to that level? And we presented it to ABC Central Florida, and ABC Central Florida said, let's go. Let's go ahead and get this out to our current members. And it just happened. People started filling out and saying, hey, I'm interested. What is this? What is this? How do we get this up and running? How do we implement it for there? And just the members itself from ABC were very receptive of, okay, here you go. And it was great because all the board members are made up of the biggest general contractors throughout Central Florida. So we all know when I did my presentation to them and they said, well, what is a safety captive? And I started explaining the program to them, and I said, I want you all to sit back and think about it for 1 second. Who are some of the contractors in your brain, don't say it out loud, that if you turn around and said, man, I would love to work with these guys, but they really just are unsafe, or their EMR rating is too high and they're just not following the program, and I wish they had their own program. If you can think of more than 2 of those names right now, this program would be successful in ABC. And it was launched. They said, let's go. So we launched in ABC Central Florida, and now we're talking to other chapters about getting it up and running with them. And again, the idea of it is to make it affordable for smaller companies to be able to do this. And that's just the high idea behind it, is that we want, don't get me wrong, we want to make money. We're in it to make money as a company, but we also are looking at it in the long game. I could definitely charge a lot more money than what we're charging. But the idea behind it is that now when you go win that job and you go on to the next project and you go on to the next project, and they turn around and say, hey, by the way, we need you to have a safety person on site, not just a safety director. You pick up the phone and you call me and say, hey, Terence, I need to staff somebody here full time on a project here. Or they say, hey, you need to have a medical program up and running for this site as well. They pick up the phone and call me. So my end game goal is to have that relationship and network out there that they're just going to want to call me for that one-stop shop and be there with them. And that's, ABC has been a great partner in helping us facilitate this and push it out to the members.
Yeah, no, Terence, it's a dynamic offering. It's so well done, and we appreciate you coming on the podcast today to explain it to us and kind of help illuminate this to our audience as well. One of the things we like to do on the show, we always like to ask the guests for like 3 big takeaways, right? So if our audience, and I feel like a lot of them, maybe hearing about safety captives for the first time, if they're hearing that for the first time, what are the 3 big things that you would want them to take away from this conversation today?
There is an option out there for you to have a true safety program and run it as big as the big boys. If you sit there and think about it and say, my company is small, I can't afford this. You guys are coming to me and saying, hey, you need to have all of this, and I can't afford that, but you're the Gilbane, you're the Skanska, the Turners of the world. You have all of these team members. I'm a small $5 million company. The takeaway is you can have a program just like theirs through the safety captive. So you can run a big business on a small budget. Would be one of the captives. One of the things I would take away. And if you're listening to the podcast and you sat back and said, man, I don't do that. I don't know when was the last time I looked at my EHS manual. Then I hope that you take away from here and say, let's go look at this. Let's go back and as a group right now and look and see what have we done or what's in my program. And the other one is, I would probably say, working with your team members, reach out to your carriers and brokers and see what options are out there that they already have that you're already paying for. And maybe there are other options.
All right. Well, Terence, so what about an action item in addition to kind of the 3 major takeaways? If our listeners are looking for a solution or looking to engage you guys and looking for some benefit from the safety captive, what's that first step in sort of assessing their own situation?
I think the first step would, for them to internally sit there and say, I know I need to fix something. I need to take that next step. And that would be just go visit our website, go to the amphibiousgroup.com and reach out, ask us. It's free. You can email us. We'll get on there. We do a free consultation with you up front, and we can tell you right away, hey, there's some things that you can definitely work on. But part of it has to be that you want to make that change. It's hard when you have a leadership group that comes in and says, I want to get to that next level. And we go, okay, this is what we need to implement and what we need to do right away. And they go, that's great, but I don't want to do all of that. Because part of it is also creating a good safety culture on your teams. And if you don't have a good safety culture, you're not going to change anything if you're not going to be that one up front, walking out there, wearing all your PPE, showing up on the site, showing up on the project with your team members, walking hand in hand, knowing what your EHS manual says right away, and then saying, hey guys, we're not doing it the right way, and we need to do it the right way. And also not hiring that other sub that you work with all the time because it's your buddy, but they're unsafe. They're making and bringing down your company. And that's another hard part when you have relationships for so long. And we have contractors that we do work with, and they sub out of some of their work. And I call them up and say, hey, man, we did their pre-qual and it's not going to work out. And they're like, oh, I've known Billy for 30 years. He's always done work with me. He did work with my dad, and now he's with me. And I'm like, that's great, but Billy's costing you a lot of money. And the only way it's going to change is if they change as leadership. So I would say the biggest thing is leadership up front has to want to make that change, would be the next step. Want to make the change, and then reach out to us, and we'll go ahead and start working with you.
I feel like the front end of that first step, just having that self-awareness as a company sometimes is got to be hard. But you guys coming in to help coach around that even is a huge benefit probably for people who maybe don't have the luxury of benchmarking themselves against their competitors and against the rest of the market. And, hey, this is how the big boys do it sort of mentality, but sort of driving that desire to, look, if you want to get from here to here, this is how you do it.
And I'll add one more thing onto that, and it's great for you to say the same thing for self-reflection, because I did it. So we had a Total Human Health Week for ABC Central Florida, and we attended it last year. And one of my team members I brought with us, and this course was all about, they were saying it's for executives, and owners. And I was like, okay. And one of my mid-level managers I brought with us and said, hey, Eric, I want you to attend this class and let's just see how it works. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And I want him to be there to network with all the big boys that were sitting in the room. I'm like, hey, man, there's going to be a lot of people here that make decisions. I don't want to be by myself. I need somebody to be here. And one of the takeaways that I took from that class is it was a survey that they did that had 10 questions. And 2 of the questions were, do you feel that your program internally as your own company does everything that they say they're going to do? And you're going to mark from like 1 to 10. And how do you feel communication is with the senior leadership? Mark from 1 to 10. And I'm like, communication's there. Check mark box. And check mark that, yep, everything that we do internally, we're doing itself. And it was great to sit back and read the responses from Eric. And he and I were on different levels. And I came back and I said, hey, man, what do you think we're not doing? He goes, well, communication's great. Like, we have teams, we have all this other stuff. He goes, but it doesn't seem like it's real personable. Like, how do we have those meetings one-on-one? So we created one-on-one meetings based off of that feedback. And then from there, I said, you know what? We really need to have a step program or something that kind of gets that collaboration. So I created the Boots to the Ear committee. So we boots on grounds to the ear of the senior executive of the team. We have a meeting, we meet once a month, and we talk about what's going on, what are things that are out there that we could do better or add more, be more efficient to support our clients, and how can we support you better, like better equipment, technology, what's out there. And it was great because it was a good reflection, but for me, I felt like, hey, we're doing all of this. Everything's out there. We're reflecting on it. We're moving forward. Our clients are telling us they're happy with us. Our employees are all happy. So you get complacent. And it was a wake up moment of when I saw his numbers and I went, whoa, Eric, 6. 6. I gave us a 9. And he's like, wow, we could do better. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. We could do better. So we ended up setting that internally. And I think that was one of my aha moments for recognizing of, okay, what do I need to do better as a leader for my company to make that next leap, to get us to that next level. And that's where we promoted VPs and put them in place to have more ability to spread out. So that way I can get away from the nitty gritty day to day to get to that 30,000 square foot view. But I couldn't do that without my team. I need to have good team members in place. And I think that's where, again, it kind of circles back to the safety captive of, if you have a good team in place and you have a good safety department, you're not so focused on, I got another summons. I got another write-up. OSHA's out on my site again. I got another call. Oh, I had guys that got hurt. Oh, why did that happen? That was such a simple task. What do we need to do? And if you have a good team in place, then you're able to focus on those hierarchy things of creating a good safety culture and kind of being there and working with that group. So yeah, leadership is a big component for this. They have to have buy-in. They have to have that aha moment of waking up and going, okay, maybe my company isn't to where it needs to be, and I could use a service like this to bring us to that level.
Congratulations to you guys on having the type of company culture where somebody feels comfortable giving that feedback, allowing you guys to kind of build on that and improve. That's a wonderful and pretty rare circumstance within our industry. So shifting gears a little bit, where do you think contractors struggle the most? I mean, I can see a lot of implements and sort of hurdles to, again, getting from where they are now to where they want to be. But in terms of the implementation for that safety strategy, where do you see contractors or maybe subcontractors struggling the most with implementation of the captive?
I think the most of the part that struggles with it, again, is on that leadership side of being the one from the top down. You need to be able to meet in the middle, that if you're driving this and pushing it down onto your team members, you got to be there. You have to be present. You have to be out there. And one of the best examples I can have is I pulled up to a job site. I'm sitting there visiting with them, and the project superintendent pulls up, and at the gate, when we pull up there, big sign says, this is a PPE zone. You have to be wearing everything from the time you get out of your truck. And I pull up, park up, I'm getting dressed, putting everything on. I step out of the truck, I'm meeting with her. I look over, there's a senior superintendent, and he walks out of his truck with his coffee, walks right across the parking lot, right into the trailer. And then we proceeded to a 20-minute meeting talking about people not wearing PPE. And I turn around and I'm like, this is the biggest hypocrite I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
I just took 5 minutes getting dressed in my truck to come meet this guy and meet this group. And you're going to talk about a 20-minute meeting right now about not wearing PPE and why that you have the owners are coming down on you hard. And you literally just walked 100 yards with nothing on. And I was like, that to me. And here I am coming in saying, hey, bud, this is what's wrong. And now he comes to me and says, all right, Terence, he goes, what's your thoughts, man? I got to fix this. And I was like, well, first of all, you.
Yeah.
I was like, this is hard. I gotta be up front in front of you. You're the issue right now. You just walked out of that. You literally got out of your truck. I watched you the entire way, walked in here without PPE. And then you tell me, hey, man, we got to have a safety stand down about PPE. You broke your own rules right then and there. I was like, so why would anybody listen to you? Why would anyone come back and say, hey, why do I have to do it if you're not even going to do it? The project says you can't have coffee in the building. You and I are standing in the middle of the building with a coffee cup in your hand. Why would anybody listen to you?
Total culture shift or mindset shift too, just getting to that point. And I think a lot of contractors struggle with that. Like that sort of case in point hits home with, look, I've been working in construction over 30 years and that registers with me. It's, I've seen it too many times. Like it just, if you don't set that tone for culture at the top and with leadership, it trickles down, good or bad. That's what happens.
And I think the other part of it is when you look at a lot of them, they struggle to think and forecast of this is going to cost a lot of money when it really doesn't. It's a affordable program. They struggle to think about, okay, I get it. You're telling me I need to buy this equipment. I can't afford it. And then I sit back and go, well, let's think about this. The guy falls off of a list tomorrow. You can't afford to make sure he has the right harness. How much is it going to cost you when he dies? How much is it going to cost you on the next project? Your EMR rating just went up again. How much is your insurance costing you? If you go to your insurance company and say, hey, I'm implementing all of these changes based off of this, maybe they'll give you a discount for there. But they're only going to do it if you actually follow through. Paper is paper. You actually walk and say, we're doing this and implementing it. That's a big difference. So I do see a lot of some C-suite and owners that look at it and go, man, it's just going to cost me a lot of money because some of the changes you're talking about. But also, that's why we come up with a really good rollout program. Right. Because it's hard when you come back and say, hey, I know you guys are all stressed and working to the max, but now we're going to add 4 more things onto your plate. Well, you got to look back and say, hey, what can we remove from their plate at the same time? If you're putting 4 things on their plate, you got to remove 5. You got to figure out what can you do to break that away from them. And sometimes it's just looking back at their tasks and going, hey, we implemented this 2 years ago because of XYZ reason, but we're still doing it today, but it doesn't change anything. So why are we still doing it? And that's one of those, like, look back at yourself internally in your group and say, what do we need to add to their plate today? And what can we remove?
Right. Terence, another question for you then, kind of this rapid fire kind of questions here, but we talked a lot about this new program you've rolled out. Where do you see the industry going, right, next 5 to 10 years with regards to safety? If you had a crystal ball, kind of what do you think the future holds for the insurance, specifically in the captive space, for safety?
For safety, I think that this program is definitely going to go. I think that a lot of contractors, subcontractors are really going to look at this and say, this is where we need to be to get to the next level. And my hope is that some of these contractors turn into their own GCs one day, because now instead of being the contractor, being the sub, they could be that contractor that's pushing and implementing some of these. So I would say next 5-10 years, this is going to launch. It's probably going to be our biggest program that we have, and I hope it does.
Kind of harkening back to the beginning of the conversation with it's qualified labor, right? It's not that we have a shortage of people. There are people that want to do the work. They just need to be qualified and able to do it. And this program is going to help obviously increase the amount of people who are qualified for that kind of work. And so the next one, Terence, it is so clear to see you are passionate about the topic, about people and engaging with people and keeping people safe. Like you mentioned, being proactive instead of just reactive. What is it that makes you so passionate about the work that you're doing and the program you've created?
I mean, self-ownership of it a lot. I have a really, really good team. I could not be where I am today without my team members. I'd have to say that it's really good that we can all get together for collaboration. The final decision happens here, but at the end of the day, it's elaborate. It's collaborating with them. It's working with them to understand what's out there. And I've always had a passion for helping others and really giving back to the community. And I feel like the construction industry is my community. It is us helping them and where we are today and where we could be next. And I do love the fact that when I drive down the road with my kids, I will point out a building and say, hey, Dad worked on that building. Dad was in this building. My son was born at Mercy Hospital, and I literally turned around and was like, hey, I was in this room when it was being built. So some of those cool
That's
things.
awesome. That's a universal truth for anyone in construction. You show your kids. My dad's in construction. He points to buildings all the time. He's like, I worked on that. So that's a universal thing there. Terence, this has been such a good conversation today. We really thank you for your time. This is the Building Bite podcast. It's building insurance technology with the experts. But we like to ask our guests, what are you taking the bite out of today, right? These released around lunchtime. I know you're down in Central Florida. Where's the number one spot to grab a bite to eat down there?
Ooh. All right. So if we're talking for pizza, it's Joe's Pizza. It's right around the corner for us. I'm from New York. I can't get away from the pizza and the bagels. Thankfully, I think moving from New York helped me lose a little bit of weight. But at the end of the day, I'd say Joe's Pizza right around the corner from us in Edgewood is probably one of my favorite places to go. And funny enough, the whole reason that we bought the building we're in today is because of that pizzeria.
Proximity to pizzeria. There you go.
I can walk there. I was like,
location. Right there you go.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, Terence, thank you again for chatting with us today. Really looking forward to rolling this topic out, and I think it'll get a lot of traction with our listeners. If they want to hook up with you after the podcast drops, where can they find you? What's the best way to get in touch?
So you can absolutely follow us. You can find us on LinkedIn, Amphibious Medics, or the Sabi EHS. And then as well, you can always reach out to me. It's just Curran at theamphibiousgroup.com.
Awesome. Well, Terence, thank you again. Good luck moving forward, and look forward to maybe catching up with you in 6 months or so, see how things are going, maybe have you back on and talk to you again, because again, super interesting topic and a little bit different, interesting concept, and would love to come back and see how it's going in a couple of months and touch base with us again.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, Michael, thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it and all you guys do, and I look forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terence.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know somebody who would be a perfect guest, let us know at connect@thebuildingbite.com.